So it's a brand new year and we get to talk about all these iPhones once again. And today is kind of special because we get to talk about the iPhone 7 Plus. And this is a very interesting phone this specific year, but it's also one of the phones that I used for I think about 9 months personally. And it was a very good phone. It was one of my favorite phones that I had at the time of me using it. And even now it's still a pretty decent phone. However, with some new recent news, this device is probably more important this year than any other year before. And we'll get into in a second. But if you want to buy any iPhones that I would recommend this year, links are down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now with this specific iPhone, the body of it is still pretty modern if you think about Apple still selling the iPhone SE 2nd generation. We have a 5.5 inch IPS panel on the front, and the panel itself isn't that bad even now. The fact that we have ProMotion displays on our iPhone and different things like that, this device still doesn't look too bad. We have a little bit of bezel on the top and bottom with that home button and everything, but it's not a big deal. In my opinion, I'm perfectly okay with it. I don't know if other people would be, so keep that in mind. You can probably pick one of these iPhones up for like $100 and something, probably like $120 for the base model, which is not a bad deal for this phone. Now this was also the first iPhone to remove that headphone jack, so we don't have a headphone jack on this iPhone, but we do have that lightning port, which I think some people still like, and I think people kind of have moved on with it. And on the back we have this aluminum feeling back to it. Now there were some models of the iPhone 7 Plus that I own personally that was the jet black model, and in my opinion this was the best model iPhone, the best design iPhone Apple's ever made. Since then I don't think they've ever made a jet black model again, but this one just felt so premium and I was just in love with that type of design. Since then we've gotten glass backs, and I think the frosted glass back like with the 13 Pro looks so much better, but this one at that time was a beautiful design and I was a humongous fan for it for sure. Now we do have the camera set up on this thing as well, which we'll get into right now. This thing was the first iPhone to bring a dual camera setup on the back of this device, and this is what's very interesting. Since then, pretty much all the iPhones have been bringing, at least the top tier ones, have been bringing dual camera setups, and that's a really big thing in my opinion. This thing had a 12 megapixel wide-angle lens, then a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, but we also had a 7 megapixel front-facing camera. Now on the back you could do 4K at 30, on the front 1080p at 30, and at the time of me actually using this specific phone back, I think in 2018 or 2017, I had a great time using it. The camera quality was great, and I loved being able to just zoom in and zoom out of a photo with one hand without having to pinch to zoom, because the bottom allowed you to actually, move that dial. And ever since then, that's been one of my favorite things to do on iPhones. But the camera quality in this day and age is still fairly decent. It's fairly grainy. The videos are kind of grainy too, but it's not a bad, camera if you're in very good lighting conditions. Just keep in mind that you're missing things like the ultra-wide sensor, no 4K at 60, no night mode. You do have portrait mode on this thing, and this was the first iPhone to bring that too. So a lot of firsts with this iPhone, which is great. I will tell you, if you're not planning on editing videos or doing anything like that, this specific iPhone is going to kind of sit in that pretty minimal type of area. I don't know the best way to describe it. It's not that great, it's not that bad, but when you're getting an iPhone like this, you kind of know what you're getting. So I don't really think anybody's going to have high expectations. If you're trying to, get the best type of camera quality from this thing, you're going to have to know how to edit some videos and edit some photos here and there. But overall, if you're like me and you just do Snapchat videos and photos and like Instagram DMs and stuff, this is going to be perfectly fine, I think. And I really don't think too many people are going to complain about this camera since you kind of know what you're getting into. So in terms of the camera, that pretty much covers it up. But there is a really important update with this iPhone, which is with its software. So it started off on iOS 10. Right now it's on iOS 15, and I've been talking about every single iOS 15 version, including the betas on this iPhone, for many years now. And to be honest, every single update is important, but this is what I'll tell you. Currently, as of right now, the iPhone 7 Plus is looking to be the last supported iPhone on iOS 16. So the next version of software that's coming out, it's looking like it's not going to be supported for the iPhone 6s, but it is going to be supported for the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. So in my opinion, this is the lowest iPhone I would recommend anybody to buy in 2022, mostly because iOS 16 is going to start with these iPhones. So because of that, I wouldn't recommend buying another iPhone that's, older than these, mostly because it's pretty much already outdated, So with these iPhones, that's pretty much the main update. This is the lowest iPhone I would recommend, this in the iPhone 7, because it doesn't look like iOS 16 is going to be coming for the iPhone 6s or 6s Plus. It's kind of a bummer, but it's something we're going to have to live by. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up in the software standpoint. But there's also some kind of good stuff with its performance. Now this thing has that Apple A10 Fusion chip inside of it with 3 gigs of RAM. This was also the first iPhone to bring 3 gigs of RAM, so another cool thing. Now the one thing about this specific iPhone is that it's not a crazy great performing iPhone right now, but a big thing to keep in mind is that a lot of devices had that Apple A10 Fusion chip inside. This includes iPads and iPods, and I talked about this yesterday, but pretty much if you're getting a device like the 7 Plus, the performance isn't as bad as you would expect. It's definitely better than I think something like a 6S or 6S Plus. You're getting 3 gigs of RAM, which is the same amount on an iPhone SE 2, but do keep in mind that it's not going to be extremely fast. The lack of gestures, the gesture-based design that comes with the 13s and the 10s that started it, you're really not getting that on this specific iPhone. So that does kind of make it seem like a little bit of an older device because you have to constantly interact with the display with the home button. So it does kind of get annoying here and there. But I do think if you're planning on doing things like basic tasks like going on Twitter, replying to messages, FaceTiming people, different things like that, this is going to be more than enough for a lot of people. And I wouldn't really freak out about that in terms of just, basic tasks. But if you're trying to go up to more intensive things, if you're trying to do things like heavy intensive gaming and, doing a lot of multitasking and different big ticket items, like editing videos and photos and massive photos, well, it's definitely going to show its age there. And that's really the only concern that I have. Other than that, I think all other things with this iPhone are perfectly okay when you consider the age and the price tag. Other than that, if you're expecting for this phone to be extremely fast, it's going to let you down. But if you know what you're getting into, you're buying an almost 6-year-old phone and it's definitely showing its age, well, I don't think this iPhone would be a bad deal in that specific standpoint. So in terms of that covers it up there. Now ending it off with the battery life, this device has that 2,900 mAh battery, and it's definitely a kind of a big size battery to be honest for an iPhone, considering the iPhone SE 2 has a less than 2,000 mAh battery. But this device's battery has definitely shown its age. It's an older phone now, so the battery's degraded, so that's another big thing to keep in mind. In my opinion, I would say it's less than an iPhone 12 mini's battery life right now, so that's a big thing to keep in mind. The 12 mini's battery life wasn't that great, but because this phone has degraded, my personal 7 Plus has gone down, I think, to like 80 something or maybe 70 something %. So it's definitely not as good as it used to be, but it really depends on the condition that you're buying the 7 Plus. If it's 100% brand new, the battery life, will be decent, but it's not going to be that great, especially on iOS 15. So in terms of battery life, that covers it up there. And to kind of sum up this video, and to be honest, I think the iPhone 7 Plus in 2022 sits in a very interesting spot. It's kind of old, 6 years old. The body is kind of outdated. It does have a lot of bezel on it, has a home button and everything. But when you feel this phone, it still feels extremely premium. It doesn't feel like a cheap phone. I love having the dual camera setup. I love having 3 gigs of RAM. But a big thing to keep in mind with this iPhone is that it is potentially going to be the lowest supported iPhone on the next version of iOS. So iOS 16 that's going to be coming out in the summer, it looks like the iPhone 7 Plus is going to be the lowest supported iPhone there. And because of that, it kind of makes sense for this to be the starting point of 2022. If you have an older iPhone than the 7 Plus, it may make sense to go up to something like a 7 Plus just to make sure you're getting iOS support. Other than that, if you have a newer iPhone than this, obviously don't go down to the 7 Plus, and I do think you should go consider getting like an iPhone 10 or something, but the 7 Plus is a very interesting device in 2022, and I can't wait for the future of this device for sure. So in terms of that covers it up there. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.